There was a guy that commented the other day, someone was saying about you being grumpy and looking like you're half asleep, and someone commented, "Don't change anything, we like Dan like that."
Yeah,
a bit odd, yeah. Nice.
Back once again. What are we looking at, Sean?
Today, Dan, we are looking at, I mean, it's 25 years late,
yes,
but we are finally looking at the PSP AudioWare Vintage Warmer 2.
Let's find out. Is it? So, you've just said that we haven't reviewed the Vintage Warmer.
No.
You have reviewed the Vintage Warmer.
I did. In fact, on PSP's website, I found, where I was looking just out of curiosity, they've still got my quote. It's credited to Computer Music Magazine, because that's who I was working for at the time. And my quote was, "It may look like your granny's cooker, but the PSP Vintage Warmer is one seriously hot plug-in." I mean, it sounds like Jeremy Clarkson, but that was me.
You wish.
25 years ago.
Yeah.
I think that's when it came out, or maybe 20 years ago, a long time ago. A very, very long time ago. But yeah, it's about time. Someone said you've not actually reviewed it on this show, and you talk about it all the time.
Well, we know it's not shit.
We know it's not shit, but let's talk about it.
Okay, let's talk about...
Let's get into it a bit.
Cracked version of Logic 5.
PSP Vintage Warmer.
Yeah.
So, this came out at a time when there wasn't much going on in the plugin world. There'd been this explosion of third-party plugins that were mostly a bit odd.
Yep.
They were doing weird effects, all that kind of thing. And then Wave started doing, I don't know what you call them, not modelled at the time, but plugins that looked like bits of real hardware that certainly sounded similar to those bits of hardware. They'd got a lot of the right sounding traits, but they weren't particularly analog sounding. They were very linear. They didn't have any non-linearities in that they didn't behave like analog gear. They didn't have that kind of saturation. And then PSP dropped out of the sky, it appeared out of nowhere, the Vintage Warmer. And the Vintage Warmer instantly, bearing in mind, it didn't appear to be that long ago that we'd been working with analog. We'd been through this period of going from analog to sort of digital tape, and then we were working on hard disk recorders, and then we were working on computers. We could still remember and still miss that sound of analog stuff. But it was incredibly expensive. You couldn't go out and buy like you can now. You can go and buy a bus compressor, you can go and buy an EQ. It's not ridiculously expensive to get that analog sound, but back then it was. And PSP came out with a plugin that gave you that sound, and I remember reviewing it and being blown away, and it lived on my master probably for 10 years. You know, and interestingly, I was testing, I've had it ever since, but I was testing it again for this review. I've sort of fallen in love with it all over again, and I've put it back on my master. It's awesome. I forgot how good it is. So let's get into it. What is it? It can either be a single or a multi-band compressor / limiter. So as you can see from looking at it, it's got the two big vintage meters. I mean, the graphic hasn't changed since the original, which is, I love it. It was interesting looking at the time, and now lots of plugins look like this, but it's a nice, easy interface, I think. You've got your big drive control in the middle. This is literally driving into the circuit. You've got a knee control there, the knee setting on your compressor. So your speed, how fast is it reacting? And then you've got your release multiplier there, which you can choose yourself, or you can stick it in an auto setting. There's a long button if you want even longer release times. Over this side here, this is where you choose. You've got your switches along the bottom, on, off over there. You've then got fat, off or on. Fat is just what they called oversampling back then. They've kept the same now. And then you've got single or multi-band. In a multi-band situation, which is how it works best, you basically have a compressor for the low and a compressor for the high. You set it into stereo. You can link them or unlink them. You've got then the amount of low and high that is being affected. You can set your frequency where you want that to focus. So if you want the compression to focus at 100 hertz, that's where it will do it. The top, you know, you can see on this screenshot, was it at 15 hertz roughly? And then you've got a mix control. That was very rare back then. I always found set it to not quite 100, somewhere around 80, 90, let a bit of the real signal come through, and then use this on top. And then you've got an output control. The ceiling is literally, if you're using a brick wall limiter, where do you want that brick wall to be set? So that's really useful if you're using it on your master bus and it's the last thing that's going to be there. If you're not using a limiter, set a brick wall just below so you don't redline at all. And that's it. And you drive into it. And by adjusting the knee and the speed and the drive, you can get a variety of different sounds. And it has a very thick analog sound to it.
Do you think it's always sounded the same? Do you think they've updated the code? Or
I don't know if they updated the code for Vintage Warmer 2. You can see on this, I created a preset, which is this is. Feel free to nick it. I just call it Mastering Punch It Up. It just gives it such a lot of
oomph.
And there's a level boost, obviously, but there's also enough squash and saturation that it just makes everything sound better. It's yes, it's a truly awesome plugin. Actually, it's amazing they managed to code this that long ago. It's and it kind of made them. They became a much sort of more successful plugin company thanks to the Vintage Warmer. I've got to mention that when you buy it, you also get something called Micro Warmer, which is a slimmed down version of this, slightly smaller GUI, simpler controls. And what they would recommend is that if you want to get the sound over a bunch of channels, you use that and then stick this on your master. They also have the Vintage Warmer LE, which is the cut down version from a point of view of CPU. So it's a slightly less high fidelity version. But again, if you're going to use a lot, it's not a bad idea. It's not particularly high CPU, this. Back when it came out,
it was.
It would have been, because, you know, we were running Pentium PCs and stuff. You know, I remember the days
Sony
where you would run 10 plugins and you know, you'd be lucky to get the 11th. Whereas, you know, now we can run hundreds, so it's not going to be an issue anymore.
Days gone by.
Days gone by indeed. But yeah, this is part of, you know, computer music production history, this plugin. I think it still stands up. You're going to have to go a long way to find a plugin that does a bit of compression, limiting and saturation that does it better than this.
Yeah. Amazing.
It is pretty amazing. 30-day demo.
From the PSP website.
From the PSP website.
Obviously.
30 days. I mean, you know, that's amazing. And if you want to buy it, it's $149. Which is pokey, isn't it?
I thought you were going to say because it's vintage.
Yeah.
And it is a vintage, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, I thought it was going to be a little bit cheaper than that. They must have updated the code.
I think Vintage Warmer 2 was an update over Vintage Warmer 1, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know whether that's a complete redo or what. But it's...
But you obviously bought it again.
Yeah, obviously. It's... No, I didn't buy it again. I bought it whenever it was.
Did you?
I mean, I might have been given it. I can't remember. It was a long time ago.
Yeah, that long ago.
But yeah, we haven't got a... Yeah, we don't have to say anything we don't want to say. But PSP, I've always liked. We do rave about them just because, you know, I reviewed this when PSP first started, and you know, they're responsible really for a lot of the quality of plugins we have now, because companies like that in the early days were doing such good quality work.
Yeah, so look, we always say go to the website, download the demo and have a play.
Yeah, go to the demo, have a play with it and see for yourself, but just copy those settings that I've put on the screen and I think you'll see it's going to be very hard to find a plugin that will do exactly that. I'm not going to say you probably haven't got two plugins. If you put together, you could probably do something very similar. Yeah. But it's still a very good plugin.
There we go, people. It's not even worth asking the question, is it?
What, is it shit?
Yeah.
Of course it isn't shit. Nah.
It's a fave, isn't it?
Yeah, it is one of my favourite plugins. It's weird. I kind of have let it languish in the plugin folder for quite a long time.
There's so much choice now, isn't there? That's the thing.
That has become a real problem. Yeah. In that I've recently, when was it? Logic 11. Recently, Logic, one of the more recent updates, allowed you to put your plugins into folders of your own choosing. So I've started doing that. So I have like a favourite folder. And that has now grown to the point where I've got to slim it down again.
You've got to put favourite folder in your favourite folder.
Yeah, because...
Favourites.
But the thing is, you find when you're working on your own stuff and there's no time limits, you can mess around, try out 20 plugins on everything. Yeah. When you're doing a commercial job and you know you've got to get another 2 mixes done, you go to your favourites, you know, and the SSL plugins, if I'm mixing a track, I'm just going to be using SSL for 90% of it. If I get very, you know, down a dead end and I need a different sound, there's a few others I'll try, but 90% of the time I'll be mixing with SSL. Yeah. But that's because it's quick and it's familiar.
Yeah, and you know it.
Yeah, and I know it, and it's like, but there's,
I like that. I like the SSL stuff, and as you know, I like the Noise Ash stuff.
Noise Ash stuff's brilliant. Yeah, that's quite often, if I'm like, no, I need a Neve kind of style for this, I'll go
Which
Noise
one of them
Ash.
is on our top 5, isn't it?
Yeah, the 31102 is just such a good sound. I go to that a lot. It's the only one of the Noise Ash Need, the Neve stuff that is in my favourites folder, because I know very quickly I can get that style of sort of sound.
Is there a PSP on the top 5?
We've got the PSP Saturator in the top 5. Which is, I wouldn't be surprised if it's the same sort of code that's in this. It sounds very similar. And I use that for different things. I use it for dirty saturation, but I also use it just to get a tape sound. It's really good.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, there we go. A bit of digital history there. There's a strange
and
concept.
a bit of a love-in for PSP.
Yeah.
We're not biased. We didn't get paid. We just like their stuff.
Yeah. Anyway, don't forget to like the video, please.
That would be very cool. And maybe subscribe or become a channel member.
We've got an Instagram as well, Studio Life 101.
There is that. And there's a top 5 list of plugins, and there's all the links down below. And I've got a couple of courses up above, might be worth having a look at if you want to learn how to mix or master.
Until then, did you mention the thing you were going to mention?
I totally forgot. Should I do it now?
Yeah, because you said on the video that we put out yesterday,
I did,
that you were going to mention it in that video, and you didn't.
I didn't. I've forgotten. I nearly forgot again.
People will have stopped watching. They've turned it off now.
They will have
it's
turned
like
it
watching
off.
the credits.
Yeah, I've gone. Yeah. It's the credit scene. Okay, so there's it's not a rumour anymore. It was on Plugin Alliance's Instagram yesterday. They have done an officially sanctioned by SPL version of the Mixhead. The Mixhead plugin, which was done by Make Believe and Metric Halo, which we reviewed, didn't give it a particularly great review. Got a load of shit in the comments from people that thought we were deaf, but I think they're stupid.
I know which I'd rather be. Stupid.
Both. Yes, SPL have got together with Plugin Alliance to do an official version. I don't know when it's coming out. Maybe it's this week, maybe it's next week, maybe it's going to come out in NAMM. I don't know, but it'll be really interesting, and you can trust us to get hold of it and test it as soon as.
Exciting stuff.
Yeah, yes and no. I'm sure it'll be as the other one.
Anyway, till next time. Sayonara, suckers.
Adios.